from Becca. She says, protecting LGBTQ workers under sex protection while legally expedient is a rejection of the idea that trans men are men and trans women are women. Would you push for explicit protections for LGBT Americans to be signed into law regardless of the Supreme Court's decision on how they feel it relates to sex?
Yes, I would. The tagline for this campaign is humanity first, and last I checked, that means everybody. And so certainly, if the Supreme Court does not want to recognize the rights of trans Americans, then we have to try and pass that law. That's what the laws are for. And I know the Supreme Court right now is hearing cases about whether sexual orientation should be protected, should be a protected category, and 100% it should be. It's so long overdue. To me, it's in some ways hopeful that we've raced ahead of the laws so quickly, but the laws need to catch up in a huge way, because the fact that it's legal to discriminate against someone based on sexual orientation in terms of their employment and other things, to me, is unconscionable. I mean, does that seem just to anybody being like, hey, I found out that you love a certain way, you're fired? I mean, that's reprehensible. So we need to have the law catch up to present day American society and our values, and have sexual orientation be a protected category under the law. I certainly hope the Supreme Court makes the right decision in the days to come. But if they don't, then we need to pass the law in Congress.
So in addition to that, I want to add on a question from William, who said, Mr. Yang, I'm a gay man who feels my rights have been less than for most of my life. President Obama's administration give me a sense that there was a road to equality, and then the Trump administration essentially reversed that, has taken away that sense of equality, and actually made me fear for my safety. Besides what we just talked about, as president, what will you be doing? What will you do for the community?
I certainly hope that my election will be a signal in the same way that you felt that William, right?
William, yes.
That William felt about Obama's election. That's like a sign of progress and inclusion and values. But when I talk to LGBTQ Americans around the country, they say something similar to William, in the sense that they're more likely to be kicked out of the house, fired from a job, economically persecuted, and struggle with stress levels and mental health issues. And one of the things they said to me was that my flagship proposal, this Freedom Dividend, would help make members of the community more resilient, because they'd be able to leave certain unwelcome or even dangerous environments,
right,
and then move to more welcoming and supportive environments, be able to pay for things that help make them stronger and healthier, like if there's a need for counseling or anything along those lines. And so, to me, they're the laws and the culture, which I believe I can very positively influence and impact. Right. But then there's the reality on the ground, where we all know that regardless of the laws on the books, people in the LGBTQ community are going to still face prejudice and hatred every single day. And so the question is, how do members of the community actually protect themselves and move or remove yourself from an environment that's going to persecute you for who you are. And so one of the things I love about the Freedom Dividend is it actually makes us all more able to protect ourselves and make society more dynamic and resilient. It protects the people who need it the most, and that can be true for a number of things, but certainly the LGBTQ community would be chief among them. Because it's like there are values as a culture, and then there's the day-to-day reality, and we have to try and improve all of it. Certainly in my administration, and my campaign is very fortunate to have leaders who are LGBTQ, and they're incredible. Same would be true in my administration. There'd be very senior leaders who are LGBTQ, because to me it would be very strange if that were not the case, honestly. So hopefully that's helpful, William. Hopefully my presidency can give you the same kind of optimism and sense of a path forward.
The one of the things you talk about a lot is there's the laws and there's the culture, which you just kind of said, right?
You know, to me, there are three things, man. There's like the laws, and then there's the culture, and then there's the reality on the ground.
Yeah, which
You know what I
maybe
mean?
the last two are kind of tied in the same thing. But yeah,
No, because the culture is like, hey, what do I think is right? And then the reality on the ground is like, hey, you know, when the like shit hits the fan, honestly, it's like, you know, what can I do?
Right.
You know, it's like, I mean, they're different, and that to me is very different than cultural images.
Right, I agree. It's one of the things, and you said in the debate stage, like rules, while sometimes helpful, don't always save us.
Yeah, the rules. You know, not everything is a rules problem. I mean, obviously, if you're passing laws, then it's very tempting to see everything as a rules problem because you're literally passing rules, and you know, and having the right rules in the books is 100% crucial and pivotal. But also, I think anyone in the LGBTQ community knows that even if we get all of the proper rules and protections on the books, you're still going to wake up the next day and there's going to be someone who sees you and is prejudiced against you because the rules and protections don't go into people's hearts and minds and change them overnight.
Right.
You know, I mean, that's going to be ongoing.
So Nate online is asking a clarifying question. I mean, based on, because we talked about rules, we talked about, frankly, more than rules. But his question was: the Equality Act currently proposed in Congress would outlaw discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. Do you support the Equality Act?
Oh, 100% yes.
Yeah.
Completely.
We are in support of the rules.
Thank you for specifying,
Yeah.
because it is different. The Equality Act is one thing, and then including sexual orientation and the Civil Rights Act is another.
Right.
But I'm for the Equality Act completely, Nate.
And I think one of the things we've always stressed with the Yang Gang is living and breathing humanity first, right? Like, so when in doubt, that's what we stand for, you know?
Yeah, it makes things very straightforward. So you think, like, what's the right thing to do on, like, a human level? And being like, well, clearly,
Right.
you know, of course, members of the LGBTQ community should be considered equal in every possible respect.
Yeah. I'm going to shift topics because of in interest base, we have an hour left, but
Sure.
Anything you wanted to add as I close the loop on this? And I think we covered a good amount, but
No, just that there's like a, on a personal level, like I grew up the son of immigrants in this country, and I remember being the skinny Asian kid who'd skipped a grade, who just felt out of place, like one of the only non-white kids in my school, and I just felt like that sense of marginalization and sometimes shame. And I think that gives me at least a sense of what it's like to grow up marginalized in this country. You can't know what it's like to grow up anything other than what you are. So, you know, I would certainly never imagine I understand the LGBTQ experience or other experiences, but I feel like I understand what it's like to feel like you don't belong, and I naturally would love to change that feeling for young people and young Americans of every background.
Thank you for that. I'm going to leave it there.